Going live. Hi. This is an interesting start to Friday, and I'm going to try to make this one quick because this is super important to me. Hopefully, I got your attention with Safewords. Anyone who knows what Safewords really are, right? Kind of fun. I have an experience I'd like to share. In my original tweet, I've actually tagged Willow Place because of their support to our community with women's wellness shelters. I've also tagged Rent for Women and Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba. I participate with Rent for Women on a regular basis to promote the event or help fundraise the event locally, and with the proceeds going to Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba, which helps advance women's wellness programs at that location. And that's not to say that's an exhaustive list of what's available in Winnipeg. Those are the ones that I thought of the most, and I felt it would be important to give them a mention so that they get an appropriate nod for anyone who's visiting this story. Safewords, and you'll notice that there was a content warning regarding abuse, and it's not for myself, right? But for a very, very, very close friend of mine who is still shaking. Even though it was a while ago, I'm still shaking talking about it, but it is important to discuss. So here we go. For contextual reasons, that when you have a friend who is in a difficult position, I know it is super easy for, let's look at this mess here, right? It is super easy for anyone who is in a loving and caring position to try to just flood the somebody who's on the receiving end of an abusive relationship, and you want to flood them with logic, thinking that all of a sudden they'll just gain mental clarity of, oh yeah, that's right, this is a shitty position, and I suppose, right, you're right, and I should do something about it. Duh, what took me so long? You'd think that that's the way it would go. And unfortunately, by doing that, what ultimately happens frequently enough is when people try their best to be loving for somebody that they love, it ends up pushing them away because it looks like you're somebody who's trying to devalue everything that's meaningful for them in their relationship. So you always have to take that with an element of caution. And so with that, what is strongly advised is to affirm to somebody who is a victim of abuse, to let them know that their decisions that they choose to do are valid, and you support all of their decisions. That's the most important part, regardless of the decisions that they make. If they are truly, truly, truly a friend or a person or a partner or whatever to you, you validate any decision that they make and support them unequivocally through it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to accept or agree with it, but the supportiveness is one of the most important pieces. As frustrating as it may be sometimes, because I've used the quip a few times, and anyone who's heard it before might recognize that it's something that I enjoy. But it's so many times that one would recognize that there are a billion red flags, but a victim of abuse is trying to make a sailboat out of all those red flags, right? Not really working. And so when you're doing your best to be supportive to somebody who is a victim of abuse, like I said, that to hear everything that they say and then say, no, you're wrong, isn't helpful. It never will be helpful, ever. So affirming support is the least one can do, and just with patience and mindfulness to, hey, let's reflect on this experience. What happened, right? How do you feel about that? What do you see from that? Here are some things that I see. Do you see the same thing? And carry on from there. Make sure to remind them that you're available, and then also make sure to remind them that there are resources available and they should be utilized because that's why they're there, right? That it's funny because, especially for somebody in the throes of love, would be like, nobody understands me, this is different. It's not. Newsflash, your story is not special. You are not unique in the situation. People do understand you. You have to allow it to happen. With that being said, though, the supportiveness extends to what can we do should things be at a point where we can't do this anymore? What happens when there's a point of crisis and you also recognize that you need help? And so with that, for my friend and I, we've decided to use a safe word. Better. And with that it was an easy way to include a discrete word in a texting conversation so that it wasn't obvious, right, as a call for help. But it was also a very unique word that just wouldn't find its way into common discussions. Um, and it was a while ago that we set that up. Quite a while ago, after another incident, which was at the point where I'm like, remember, be mindful, don't tell her what to do. Because. So anyway, this morning I ended up actually being in a conversation with her, and again, she's explaining some things that are happening at home, which echoed very similar things in the past. And again, right? How do we recognize what's happening? Do you hear your words? If somebody was telling you these things, you'd be flipping tables. And so I really hope that you listen, right? And you understand that I care. This is important. This is critical, right? That it's not as, this isn't as easy as you think it is, right? This isn't just going to magically wash itself as much as it looks. We'd all love that. We would all love the happily ever after. We all would. We all would. Everyone deserves it. Everyone deserves their happy ever after. And I was expressing to her, I was like, you need to hear me, that I'm concerned. And time goes on, I'm carrying on with work. And then a text shows up with that safe word, and instantly called, like, as we agreed on, right, that safe word shows up. She would be okay with the police being called to get down to the address and handle the situation accordingly. She's still in, we ended up talking for a little bit a while ago before I had a call with the clinic. But she's, as far as I can tell, she's just in a position of just processing is a really good way to put it. But we did talk for a bit, and the narrative is exactly what one would expect, and it is heartbreaking because nobody deserves to be on the receiving end of violence. Nobody deserves to be on the receiving end of abuse and threats and control, and just devaluation of their own lives, right? And dehumanizing who they are and everything, right? Nobody, doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you do, what you believe in, how you state your beliefs, and so on, right? Nobody deserves that type of behavior. And one thing that it stings with her, and I it echoes with me too. Just the brashness of the confidence to say to the police, is when the police did show up, de-escalated the situation. He's been removed. Not without a house that still needs to be cleaned, but I digress. As a matter of fact, that the next thing that I'm going to be doing is calling 311 to figure out COVID policies to find out if it's even allowed for me to just help. If I can't, I feel terrible. If I can, I absolutely will. Because whatever. But anyway, I digress. But the to say to the police that, yeah, like to summarize it, to be like, yeah, I didn't care about how I treated about her. I didn't care about her feelings. I didn't care. I intentionally manipulated the situation so I got what I want. And that's, can you, like, I'm sure everyone can imagine being in a loving relationship or an attempted loving relationship and communicating everything you can to your partner to accommodate, right, everything. And the challenge with that is that lots of times one thinks that by loving you receive love. It like a simple transaction. I love, therefore I get loved. And it is a long process to realize that loving doesn't necessitate receiving love, right? It's not something that's flipped like a switch. It is life experience that you realize that by being loving, doesn't share and scale values with others, right? That it's a very fluid dynamic. And so as soon as you begin to accept that and realize that your best efforts does not guarantee your best return, life when it comes to managing love does become easier to comprehend. But that is an aside to the point, to the fact of hearing, regardless of your efforts, but hearing an affirmation of, I never cared, I don't try because I'm getting mine, I'm getting my cake, I'm eating it, and it's even being delivered to me, and the dishes are getting washed. Why would I change? So anyway, safe word. Um, and so I wanted to share a story on that because I this is an extension of yesterday. As a matter of fact, we set this plan a while ago because she's an important person to me. Right? Any of my friends who I consider close friends are very important people to me, and my network's as big as a hula hoop. Like my personal network's as big as a hula hoop. So if you're hulaing with me, I'll flip a mountain for you. And so with that it was established, and I'm grateful that she trusted me to finally take action on things. And so what I want to extend as a conversation to yesterday is I believe strongly that our society, our communities, our just everybody takes this stuff far too lightly overall, right? When it comes to abuse, when it comes to threats, when it comes to harassment, when it comes to any elements of, transphobia, racism, xenophobia, name it, right? Any of those, it always feels like it's easier and wiser to just turn your back on it and not create it to be your problem. And I agree. It would be great if it just wasn't your problem. The challenge, though, is at what part of your conscience when you think about that and realize that when you have an opportunity to help make a better place and you choose to not assist with that, where does that sit and how does that feel? It took me no effort to stop what I was doing and call 911. No effort. There's no difference in my day. Granted, like I said, I'm still shaking a little bit because it is like it's troubling. You don't know what the behavior is. You have no idea what's going on. I didn't know I was going to be getting a phone call from the police saying, "Thank you for calling us. I'm sorry that your friend is dead." Process that. Process that. Take a second. Everybody, whoever sees this, take a second and realize what that sounds like. Of thank you for doing the right thing. I'm sorry that it was too late. This is why, as a community, as a society, and as a world, we need to start stopping this bullshit. This is why we need to continue to promote shelters against abuse. This is why we need to continue promoting advocacy against things like white supremacy and all forms of hatred. All forms of hatred. It doesn't matter what your background is, where you're from, what you do, and what you believe in. Hate is hate. Abuse is abuse. You shouldn't have to wait for the right time or place or there's certain permissions from so-and-so to go ahead and speak up against it. And until we all start banging that same drum and marching forward, it's incredibly performative and exhausting. And it would be better if people just stopped and just stopped pretending like they care. So if you do care, please let this be a moment to remind yourself that it's critical to show you care. Because you might not realize how much people are depending on others to prove it. Anybody can go online and read a story about, hey, I care about you, let me know. But what people really need, truly, is to see it in action, to know it exists. Because anybody can write fanfic. Anybody can write a story. Anybody can write what sounds nice. But how many people can actually do what's right? And if you feel you can do what's right, there's no better time than now to remind yourself that. If you already do it, thank you so much for being one of those people who want to advance just the health of our everything, everything. If you want to be that type of person but never knew how to start, just do it. That's the short answer. Just do it. Because doing something is infinitely better than doing nothing. And then those who resist it, I know who you are. This is a critical time in all of our lives, coming off the tail end of, or not even on the tail end of a pandemic, but obviously being in the throes of it and not even knowing what the outcome is looking like and not realizing what the repercussions are. But this pandemic, if it's done one thing for our entire planet, is expose everyone's honesties. This pandemic has exposed all of our honesties. And if your honesty is helping create a better place, then this is my challenge to you to show us. I'll be more than happy to listen. I'll be more than happy to help. Anybody watching this who feels like they need somebody to also have a safe word with just in case, don't hesitate to share. Don't hesitate to share. I'll be more than happy to do the best that I can to help. If you feel you've got other independent solutions, don't hesitate to promote those. If there's somebody you know who's struggling and you've been passive about it, touch base, check in, share this story. Donate accordingly. If you feel you want to stay discreet but you still want to be supportive, donate, absolutely. Write a story, like and retweet, don't forget to subscribe. This was a very important event to my day today. Certainly not how I expected to start my Fridays, but it was something that I was 100% prepared for. Being on the receiving end of the phone call and hearing the amount of crying is something I won't forget. And it reminds me very much of an instance many years ago, as a matter of fact, with somebody who was incredibly close to me. And she was in a very similar situation. The narrative is not too different, but again, gaslit severely, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And I remember getting a phone call from her when I was, remember back in the day when you can go to the office to work? But she calls my office line, wailing. Like, one thing was crying. Earlier today was crying. Not to trivialize it, obviously. But it was wailing, and the ear-piercing wailing of shades away from suicide level of wailing. To hear that and still hear it in my ears of how she's saying that she screws everything up and wrecks everything and can't and just... That's what happens when people feel like they have no safety from the abuse of others. And abuse doesn't always have to be violent, I guess is a good way to put it. Emotional abuse is a thing. Mental abuse is a thing. Intimate abuse is a thing. Like, I can carry on. So it's like a psychological. But to hear that is in the same thing. Unfortunately, in this story, my advice didn't go far. I wish I could explain that one better. But in this case, in the same thing I was saying to her when I was on the phone was, and I use that as an anecdote, that I hope that she recognizes that how empowered she showed herself, right? Not recognizing, maybe not at the moment, but she really spoke loudly that she truly does love herself by reaching out, asking for help. And I hope that reflects and resonates and lets it sit with her. That it might not have been the most pleasant experience about how to really discover what self-love may look like. This absolutely was an epitome of it, to say I deserve me. And so I hope that sits. I'm gonna leave it at that. I wanted to just have a really quick brief on some life and times. Odd follow-up to Bell Let's Talk Day, but it services well, in reasoning. Like I said in this tweet, I've got Willow tagged and mentioned. Please don't hesitate to donate accordingly to Willow, whether it's with money or with items that they're in need of. I've also, for my own thing I'm promoting too, with Run for Women and Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba. Please don't hesitate to support them accordingly. If you want to participate with the Run for Women to help advance just women's mental health services across the country, don't hesitate to hop on their website and make sure to jump in for this year's run. It's in 18 cities across Canada, and middle of July from 4th to the 11th, I believe, off the top of my head. Great event. I've always enjoyed it. And then Mood Disorders Association, of course, right, is where portions of the fundraising. How am I trying to phrase it? I'm scattered today. But anyway, Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba is supported by Run for Women in Winnipeg, and again, in the interest of women's wellness programs there. Feel free to check out their website too if there's any programs you want to jump in on, or if you know anybody who might take advantage of those programs for their own mental health. This, like I said, this was an event today, and I can hope that she's okay. I will be staying in touch with her. I will be more than happy to continue to be a support person for her. I've actually been in a conversation with Willow regarding this in the past, which is I'm glad to see how important this was finally recognized, but Willow's not unfamiliar with me knowing about this, so I'll be more than happy to help be a support person as necessary regarding this. And yeah, if there's somebody you know who's struggling, take advantage of your opportunity to be helpful, right? Because you don't know how much more help or how much more time there is available to be helpful. Think about it like that. Everyone's so confident that tomorrow's coming. Tomorrow's on the calendar, and that's the only thing that we know. The only thing that we can guarantee is there's another day on the calendar. We have no concept what happens after this exact second, and this exact second, and this exact second. We have no idea. So use your strengths to help when you can, because there's a lot to go around, and there will be people who will receive it. So thanks for listening. I hope everyone has a good rest of your afternoon. And again, please support those locations and anywhere else that you can think of that provides similar services from where you're from, depending where you're watching this. And hopefully we will continue to see ourselves advance into a much more stronger and healthier society and communities as time goes on. So, thanks.